Hey there, fifth graders. Here we go. Our sixth and final episode in our playlist in our fraction operations review. This one is about dividing whole numbers by fractions. Remember last time it was dividing fractions by whole numbers. Well, let's see how we do. Let's start off as usual.
I took my blocks and built two walls. Each wall, one block, was 1/4 of them all. 2 divided by 1/4 equals 8. 8 blocks to build the wall at my castle gate. To divide a whole number by a fraction, we start by dividing a whole number into fractional parts. Think of the number of fractional parts present, and there will be the quotient.
Then I took my blocks and built 3 C's. 1 block was 1/5 of each. 3 divided by 1/5 equals 15. That's how many blocks it took to build my seats.
To divide a whole number by a fraction, we start by dividing a whole number into fractional parts. Think of the number of fractional parts present, and that will be the quotient.
When there's a fraction we want to divide by, we can flip the fraction and multiply. Think of 3 divided by 1/5. We'll get the same answer if we multiply and flip. So these expressions are equal, and we call 5/1 1/5 reciprocal.
To divide a whole number by a fraction, we start
We're gonna start here.
by dividing a whole number into fractional parts. Think of the number of fractional parts present, and that will be the quotient.
We got the quotient.
Okay, there you have it. Dividing a whole number by fractions. Well, here's the mini lesson for you today. Dividing whole numbers by unit fractions.
We are going to learn what it means to divide whole numbers by unit fractions. Let's review what we already know about division. We know that when we divide whole numbers, we are taking a whole number and breaking it into equal-sized groups. If there are 6 apples and each person gets 2 apples, we can figure out how many people will get apples by using the division equation 6 divided by 2. To solve this division problem, we first need to ask ourselves, how many groups of 2 are in 6 wholes? That means we need to take our 6 apples and we need to put them into groups of 2. Now we can count how many groups of 2 we have. We see we have 1 group of 2, 2 groups of 2, and 3 groups of 2. That tells us we have 3 groups of 2 in 6 wholes, and 3 people can get apples. The 6, our total number of apples, is called the dividend. The 2, the number of apples in each group, in this case, is called the divisor. 3, our answer, is called the quotient, and it tells us how many groups of 2 are in the 6. Let's look at this problem in a different way. Let's say we still have 6 apples, but each person is going to get half of an apple this time. We want to know how many people are there that will get apples. Well, now our division equation looks a little different. We have 6 divided by half. Instead of dividing 6 by a whole number, we are now dividing 6 by a fraction. 1/2 is a unit fraction because the numerator is a 1. Any fraction with a numerator of 1 is called a unit fraction. In order to solve 6 divided by half, we need to ask ourselves, how many halves are in 6 wholes? In order to do that, we need to take our 6 whole apples and we need to divide them into halves. Once I've done that, I can count how many halves I have in the 6 whole apples. Now I'm going to count each half separately because each half is a group in this case. And now I see that there are 12 groups of half in 6 wholes. I want to make sure I write the answer to my problem. 6 divided by half equals 12. And since my problem was asking me how many people there were to get apples, I'm going to label that 12 people. Now, some of you great mathematicians might be noticing that your quotient, your answer, is actually larger than the numbers you divided. You're absolutely right. That's because we divided a whole number by a fraction. Let's look at another problem. Let's say there are 3 cakes and each person is going to get 1/4 serving of cake. We want to know how many people will get cake. We can use the division equation 3 divided by 1/4 to represent this problem. To solve this problem, we need to ask ourselves, how many 1/4 groups are in 3 wholes? To do that, we need to split each whole cake into fourths. Now we can count how many groups of 1/4 are in these 3 wholes. I see that there are 1, 2, 3, 4 groups of 1/4 in this one whole, which means there are 4 groups of 1/4 in the others. Now all I have to do is count by 4s to make my counting quicker. So I have 4, 4, 8, 12. I have 12 groups of 1/4, which means 12 people can get cake. We can also use fraction bars to model this problem. The blue bars here represent our 3 wholes. The yellow bars represent how many groups of 1/4 we have in those 3 wholes. Again, we see that in each whole, there are 4 groups of 1/4. So we have a total of 12 groups of 1/4. Look at one last problem. Say I have 2 whole candy bars and I want to share those candy bars with some friends. So I'm going to split or divide those candy bars into thirds. I have the problem 2 divided by 1/3, which means I need to figure out how many groups of 1/3 are in 2 wholes. All I need to do is count how many 1/3s I see, and I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 groups of 1/3 in the 2 wholes. Now you've learned what it means to divide a whole number by a unit fraction.
Well, I hope that helps you understand how to divide a whole number by a unit fraction. Thanks for watching. See you later.
Reciprocal.
To divide a whole number by a fraction, we start.
Yeah, we're gonna start here.
By dividing a whole number into fractional parts. They broke the number of fractional parts, that's it.
Yeah, keep it on here.
And there will be the quotient.
Yeah, yeah. We got the quotient.